Hey guys, can you hear me okay? There's a pretty significant delay with the microphone, so hopefully that's okay. Double echo? Let me look into that real quick. Check. Not really sure where the echo's coming from. I'm not hearing it here, so hopefully that's not terrible. I don't know what to do about it. You know that live streaming is probably one of the terriblest things to try to pull off. It always goes wrong, and I don't know why. Are you just hearing echo on the voice, or are you hearing echo on all the machines? Hey, Karan. Like I said, there's a pretty significant delay from me seeing the chat and me talking to you. Will Emoto, what are you hearing? What is this echo that you're hearing? Can you describe it? Mr. Willamoto, are you sure that you didn't take a large dose of ketamine and now are stuck in a K-hole? Because sometimes that can happen and you hear like multiple sounds at once. Okay, we've established that it was Mr. Willamoto that was having an issue. Yeah, Root, they are friends. They're very, very good friends. We have the Digitakt, the Digitone, and the Analog Heat, which is the newest addition to the whole family here. And aren't they pretty? Isn't this just like a really peaceful aesthetic with all these little guys? So I'm gonna let y'all kind of dictate this stream a little bit in terms of where we go. I spent a lot of time with first the Digitone and then the Digitakt attached to the Digitone, and then this just arrived, I don't know, like last week or something like that. And so I've been using the, what do you call it? The Analog Heat, the Anal Heat, as a clean boost box. It actually has a clean boost mode. So just to give like a little flavor to the mix, which I'll talk about in a second. But basically, this guy is an analog saturation unit, and I really, really like saturation for my mixes and for my stems as well. But I'll show off in a video at some point, I have a really big saturation box I got from a company called Louder Than Liftoff, called the Silver Bullet. Let me turn this down a little bit. There we go. The thing I love about these sessions that I've made on the boxes here is that they almost kind of play themselves. The Digitakt is doing more straight up drum stuff, so it's not quite as generative as the Digitakt is going. But the Digitone patterns are a little self-playing in a way using conditional triggers, which we can talk about if you want. Hi, Oscillator Sync. Can it shimmer? Man, if they put a shimmer delay or a shimmer reverb in the Digitone, I don't think I would ever use anything else. I would just use the Digitone all the time. Dualtrix, hi! Hi, Walios. Hi, everybody. Wow, y'all are hanging out on Easter. That's really cool. I like that. So anyways, the analog heat can do a lot of stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and turn through the different modes here, and you can hear. Let me just turn up the drums. I'm gonna mute everything here, and I'm gonna bring these drums back up. Okay. So now you can hear. Let me turn the voice off. Hey, where's that voice? There it is. Okay. So the analog heat right now is in clean boost mode. I can just turn it off, and you can hear that the gain goes considerably down. So it's not really a good indication of what it's doing. But in clean boost mode, it's basically doing what it says. And there's a drive level here, which I'll just turn up momentarily. You can hear a little bit of distortion on the kick drum when I do that. Wet level, which is the amount of wet. So if you wanted to like maintain unity gain, which is a good way to A/B something like a saturator, meaning that when I turn this off, the volume is the same as when I turn the effect on. You could turn wet level down and have an A/B of what the effect sounds like on and off. It's a little too low volume right now to tell that. When I do a video, when I do a video on the analog heat, I'll try to maintain unity gain at a higher volume so you guys can hear what's going on with it. And then, if you want to do parallel processing, which means the wet signal and the dry signal existing at the same time, you can use the dry-wet amount. So that's 100% dry. You can hear that we've dropped gain quite a bit because I'm using drive to bring the gain of the signal up. And then if I turn it all the way to wet, we have the fully wet signal, which is nice. Parallel processing, I think, would be best with this guy using distortion stuff. So before we get into talking about your questions about this stuff and going over maybe like some of the live set stuff that I did, I'm just going to go through these distortion modes here so that you can kind of get a sense of what this thing kind of sounds like when it's doing less subtle things. So the next thing, the next little mode here is saturation. And this is a little bit burlier. You can hear the kick drums distorting a little bit. That might be something that you're into. If I turn the drive up more, we're going to hear even more distortion. So if you're not doing a full mix process, that might be an effect that you're going for. That's actually a really nice distortion, and I can imagine running like an 808 or something through that would just be delicious. The next mode is called enhancement, which still has a little bit of distortion in the kick drum, but not as much effect in the uppers. Let's go back to saturation real quick. So it's kind of like a smoothie thing. Next is mid-drive. Yes, Dualtrix, I plan to trash it. This is called mid-drive. Let's turn this up so we can hear it just trash that fucker like Dualtrix said. This is a good opportunity to show off that it has a filter as well. So I'm going to go over to the filter. Right now it's in a high-pass mode. I'm going to turn it to low-pass so you can hear what the filter sounds like. Turn the resonance up. It's like some Massive Attack shit right there. It's really nice. It has a whole bunch of filter modes that I haven't really explored that much. I've been using the high pass mode as sort of a sub clean thing for the full mix. So yeah, let's go back to that and turn this back down and just reset for a second. Karun, I wish this had a bit crusher. That is something that it is missing. And I know it's the analog heat, not the digital heat, but if this thing had a bit crusher, I would be fucking ecstatic. It would be really, really good. Next is rough crunch, which is pretty sweet. Then classic distortion. Get a lot more high end with that. Round fuzz, which has its own characteristic as well. And then high gain, which is just... TMAD, like we said earlier, the wet-dry thing is kind of what you're talking about. And if I was to, so the problem kind of here is that, there we go. So if I bring wet down to unity and then dry wet, I'm going to turn up the master real quick so you can hear what parallel processing would sound like with distortion and clean. So there's our clean signal. And you can slowly bring in more distortion. I'm going to put it back to round fuzz. Now we're kind of parallel processing it, which is really, really cool. Because the, can you apply the heat only on the snare? Unfortunately not. So that's a good segue, actually. Oh, okay, I get you, T-Mad. Yeah, the Octatrack's crossfader with A/B scenes is pretty awesome. I have been, there's a couple people on the synthesizer subreddit that have been, showing off Octatrack stuff. They're really, really, really good at it. And I hate to say this, but now I want an Octatrack. I've wanted one for a long time, but I didn't really know like what it would do for me. And I've just been seeing a lot of really cool stuff with it. Okay, so you asked if I could put the analog heat on only the snare. And I can't, because the way that this is currently working is that the Digitakt is going out into the Digitone, and in the Digitone, if you hit function and go to master, you have control over bringing a signal, external signal in, so the input right here. You could also process it, so let me bring the beat back in and mute our Digitone. Okay, so the cool thing about this guy is now I can apply the Digitone's chorus, delay, and reverb to the incoming signal here, and overdrive. So let's just do that real quick because we can. Here's the chorus. So that's the chorus on the beat. It's actually kind of cool. Nice little stereo vibe. The delay obviously is going to just give us some echo on the beat, which is actually pretty cool, especially with panning and the send to the reverb. And then, yeah, reverb on the whole beat if I wanted to. And then finally overdrive on the whole mix. It's actually not just the input signal. It's going to affect the Digitone signals as well. And the Digitone overdrive, and I'm going to say the Digitone overdrive, is not bad. It's good to actually use on patches. I really like turning up the drive and turning down the volume to get a little bit more grit in my patches, because the Digitone is unabashedly digital, and just even though it's a digital drive as opposed to an analog drive, it just adds a nice like fuzz to it. You trash more of that snare. Let me find that snare. So let's figure out what snare you're talking about. That snare? I can turn up overdrive, and I can turn up bit crush on it. It's probably going to be too loud now. It might not be... Well, let me turn it down actually here. That's kind of cool. We could sign an LFO to it to fuck with the tuning a little bit. Give a little bit of variation. One thing I found with actually no, I had a comment there I was going to say, but it's not true. So I'm going to hit function no to return my pattern back to where it was. Okay, so I've touched these boxes and just kind of talked about them a whole bunch. I'm going to kick it over to you and say, what would you like to know about any of these things? And while I wait for the chat to catch up, I'll tell you what I've been doing. If you've seen the Digitone videos that I came out with, I spent a lot of time making these sort of weirdly generative ambient patterns using the arpeggiators and conditional triggers in the Digitone. And I spent, I think, about 2 weeks making 10 patterns like that on here. And I was going to just do an ambient performance. I thought I would like just play with the patterns, no beats, just sort of like have these like synthetic ambient performances, because there's a lot of ways that you can manipulate your your patterns. And when they're semi-generative, you don't really need to do a whole lot. You can just sort of nudge them in directions. But then I got the idea of putting beats into them. So I grabbed the Digitakt and I spent another week or so making corresponding patterns for each one of the ambient patterns, so that there were beats that went with them. And I found that to be a really cool combination of things. The Digitakt is incredibly fully functional to make minimal tracks in. Like if you want to make a whole track, you can with the Digitakt. But when you offload some of the quote unquote like tonal synthesis things to it, and let the Digitone take over, or any synth take over, because you can have MIDI sequencing on this as well, you're really able to focus on using this as just a drum computer, which is what, Elektron kind of said it should be. And it's nice to have it be able to breathe a little and not have to do like crazy conditional triggers on every step just to make a song. So the thing that's coming out on May 24th is a live performance of every single one of these little songs that I made. Each one is one pattern. And I just kind of play with them for like 5 or 6 minutes each. And the album is really, really chill. And I kind of wanted to make something kind of just backgroundy music, as you can hear from that one track, maybe something to put on while you're studying or put on while you're drawing or something like that. I know I have some friends that like to put on some of my music while they're doing tasks like that. And I kind of wanted to contribute more to that because I think that's a really cool way to think about music as something that people can experience while they're doing something else and have like two things sort of like, intertwine with each other and maybe make it easier for someone to be creative in their own way. So yeah, no one's saying anything in chat. Is there anything you really want to know? Talk to me about knowing things. Talk to me about asking things. Otherwise, I'll just play another pattern and you'll have to listen to that. I'm going to have a sip of the coffee. Jiro asks, I know nothing about keyboard Elektron devices. I've noticed that the Digitone has a keyboard lighting up white and black keys. Does the Digitakt do that as well? It does. So that's a great question. Obviously, the Digitone is a synth device. Can it Eurobeat? Yes, it sure can. So the Digitone is a synth device meant to be played tonally, sort of. You can step sequence like you can with every Elektron device by pushing this key right here, the little red Rubin's recording key. And now I could step sequence if I wanted to. And I could go into each one of these trigs, which is what we call these things in Electrog world, hit the trig button and adjust each pitch individually. But I usually real-time record. The Digitakt, what's a generative pattern? I'll get to that in a second. And I will also play another pattern too. I like all these things. We have a plan now. The Digitakt is a drum machine, basically. These 8 things up here are each a drum. You can put other samples on them depending on what you want to do, but because it's not meant to necessarily be at first a chromatically played instrument, it doesn't present a keyboard like this. So if I hit function and track, I go into what is called chromatic mode on the Digitakt. God, I'll get it right eventually. And let me find a different pattern that will show this off better. This one. No, this one. Yes. Okay. So now you can see that I have these keys lit up, and that corresponds to a key on the keyboard. So C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, etc. Kind of like exactly what you see over here. So depending on what your sample is, you can now play that as a chromatic keyboard. Like Oscillator Sync said, it is nowhere near as flexible in that I can play multiple notes. Oh, that's a fucking ARP, so. Sorry, we're clipping right there. But I can play chords over here. I think this is 8 8-voice polyphonic, so I can play up to 8 voices at once. And this one over here is not. It's monophonic. Additionally, what you're hearing over here is a single cycle waveform, which is just a little tiny snippet of a waveform. It's this little tiny thing right here that's being looped to create a tone. And if I hit up and down, I can go through the octaves. But it's really limited. Like, I can't go as high as I might want, and I can't go as low as I might want. And I don't really understand why I can't just hit this more and go up more. So sometimes I would want to go lower, and sometimes I would want to go higher. How much have I played with the scales and chord modes on the Digitone? Absolutely zero. This little button right here, I'm assuming is what you said. I just noticed this has a whole bunch of stuff in it, like a chord mode, which auto-plays chords. That's very useful. Thanks, Oscillator Sync. I just learned something today. All right, what do we have next? What is a generative pattern? Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of the coffee. Okay, generative music is music that you create a set of rules for, sort of. And yeah, I know, Oscillator Sync, I should. Thanks, I just learned about it. Chill out. I'm not going to fucking learn it now more with you on stream. No, I'm not going to change the mode. Stop talking. You had your chance. Does she have, like, eggs to color or something? Anyways, if Oscillator Sync can simmer down a little bit. Jeez. Generative music is when you set a set of rules for something and sort of let it play itself. Mylar Melodies has an amazing video about doing this in modular, and I'm sure there are people in this chat that have also experimented with doing various forms of generative stuff with the tools that they have. I would say that the Elektron box, the Digitone, is semi-generative. You can set up a series of things for it that will create evolutions of a pattern, and I guess I'll go into those in a second, that will continue to give you new things. Yes, that is a rooster. We have a really big Vietnamese Buddhist temple up the street from me that has a farm on it, and there's a rooster over there. I can't believe you can hear that. That's crazy. Who asked that question? Ian. Okay, so if you want like a better explanation, I would recommend Googling Mylar Melodies generative, or go watch my final video in the Digitone series where I talk about exactly how I'm using this, but I'll give you a quick rundown. So what I was doing mostly was using the ARP. Let me find, okay. So it's not going to be super easy to see right here, but the ARP here can be set to have rests in it, meaning places where the pattern, the ARP does not play, the arpeggiator does not play. Otherwise, it's just going to be constant notes. And then if I change certain aspects of here, like the length of the pattern, now what I've done is I've taken a pattern that's playing here and made it sort of a different length than the steps that are in the full pattern of the whole piece. And depending on how I hold this down and play it, and what time signature things are in, then I can have the arpeggiator create constant variations of timing that beat against other things. And that's kind of how I've been using the Digitone to sort of do quote-unquote generative stuff. If you couple that with conditional triggers, which are one of the things that the Elektron boxes are super well known for, then every single step that you've made, and this is a bad example because I only have one step holding this out for the whole time. But if you go over to here and go to this track. Okay, so these are trigs. These are places where the note is going to play. If I hold one of these down and go over to the trig button, and I'm sorry that this wasn't zoomed in more, but you'll just have to take my word for it. I can spin this knob right here, and there's a little section right here called cond, which stands for conditional. And I can do everything from set this to only play when I hit a fill button. I can have it do every like certain number of measures. And In this case, more importantly, I can set a percentage as to how often that trig will play, the percentage of chance that that trigger will play, which means that depending on the roll of the dice, a trigger may or may not play as you go through the pattern. And so that with drums, with vocals, with arpeggiator patterns, you can continually variate. Variate, is that a word? You can have continual variations of your patterns based on the percentage of chance that that trigger will hit. I know that was a lot of words. I hope that at least piqued your interest in the concept of generative stuff. And like I said, there are better resources for it if you want to go check out Mylar's video or, pretty much anyone else's video besides mine. What else did we have? Pash, hi. I'm glad you got chat to show up. I'm going to go turn up the brightness on the webcam real quick because I feel like we've lost a little bit of sunlight. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm gonna play a pattern real quick. This is one of my favorite ones from the thing. I'll try to keep the performance a little bit condensed because I think the tracks on the album are about 5 to 6 minutes each, and that's a little long to be dedicating to something where I'm supposed to be talking with you guys. So let's just fuck around with this a little bit, and then we can talk a little bit more. Yeah. I love that so much. I love drum and bass so much. We need more drum and bass in this world. I need to just make a drum and bass album, I think. The fun thing about drum and bass is I don't know shit about drum and bass. I just know that I really, really like that tempo and the vibe of it. Like, you know how like when you get into a genre, you're like, you start knowing all about the like actual like techniques and like the things that you're supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with drum and bass. I just really, really like playing stuff at that tempo that has like really cool melodic stuff going on with it. So yeah, that was one of the patterns for the thing. Root asks, are the colors significant or are they just aesthetic? I'm going to argue that aesthetics are functional. And that even if it was just there for aesthetic, it would still be functional. No, I mean, they're just there. I just want to make sure that I know what's right and what's left when I come out of my thing. So I just try to use different color cables to make that happen. Also, it looks good on camera. Okay, so that was a pattern. What other questions do we have? Anything? What are y'all doing with your Easter? See, I knew Drill Tricks knows what I'm talking about with drum and bass. He knows what I'm talking about. You can answer the Easter question. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I love the Digitone so much. So when I got the Digitakt, is one of the reasons I love the Digitone so much. When I got the Digitakt, this is my first Elektron box. I was like, once I got to know it, you know, there was sort of a learning curve, and I was a little freaked out by maybe having to learn a device that's this. You know, people say the Elektron boxes are hard to get into. They're not. They're really not. But one of the coolest things about these boxes is what's called Control All. And what that means is I can hold down the track button and the MIDI button on the Digitone. And for those of you that could hear the rooster, you're probably hearing a lot of yard work outside right now. So sorry about that. Hold down the track button. And now, doesn't matter what track I'm on. When I turn one of these knobs, it's going to affect that parameter for every single parameter for every track. Root, what kind of donuts are you having? I want to know. So let me play this real quick, and I'll show you what that does to drums. You saw me messing with it a lot. It's really, really good for fills and stuff like that. So for instance, if I hold down track, I can affect the tune for everything, which is cool unto itself. Hitting function no returns you to the saved temp pattern, which is really, really useful. I can make everything reverse, which again, in conjunction with tune, was how I was getting those like breakdown things. I can do the bitrate crush for everything, which again is really nice. Because you can do a loop mode for things, you can just get this really, really cool variation. Coffee and synths for now, I agree with that. You could do things like loop length. That's fucking cool, right? So just like, I mean, it's just fucking great. So that's what samples sound like. Ooh, are you going to buy a Digibox, Mr. Yodis? What you thinking about getting? Let's talk about Control All over here. So I mentioned this in the Digitone videos that I did. The implementation of FM synthesis on the Digitone is not what a lot of people think of when they think of FM stuff. They've sort of gone a dare I say, teenage engineering route and semi-simplified the way that FM is presented here. So if you're used to the way that Dext or an FM7 or Operator from Ableton or a DX7 does its stuff, you're going to be not disappointed at all, but like it's a little different. And I don't really want to get into it too much unless you guys have specific questions, because it's a little complicated. But I wanted to talk about Control All here. You have a ton of parameters. Let's see, what's a good patch for this? Is LOL on here? Yeah, okay. So let's go to LOL. There we go. Great. Okay. While you will not be disappointed from an FM perspective with this thing, I mean, the Elektron sequencer is just phenomenal, and I don't own any FM synths besides this, and I've just been really blown away with the variation of things that's possible. Having a cool FM synth that's playable in your life, I think is, if you're into different timbres and different types of synthesis and different tones that you can get out of things, is really cool, especially in conjunction with the sequencer. My only complaint is I wish I had 4 LFOs. I really wish I had more LFOs. It all has 2, which is good, but it needs more. Okay, Control All. So let me mute my drums. Womp. Okay, so we have this nice pattern over here. And like I said with over here, if I hold down this button right here, in this case it's MIDI, not track, anything that I turn here will now affect every single one of these 4 voices, which is wild when you have these patches that you've set up and you want to be like, let's just see where we can take this. So let's just fuck around a little bit and see what happens. Jiro, no, they don't. The way to get everything back to its previous state, and I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like with the OPZ. So holding function. Hold on 1 second. Holding function and yes will save a temporary version of whatever is happening right now. So all the parameters, all that stuff, it'll save it. You can save your project from a meta state, from like a permanent state if you go in and save your project. But so hitting function yes, which I'm not going to do right now, will save a temp version. And what I have is the temp version is the like full quote unquote normal version of the patch. When you mess around with it and you want to return to that, yeah, it's the Digitone and the Digitakt, Digicat root. Come on, pay attention. Now if I want to return to what I had before, I hit function and no, and that's going to reset every single parameter back to normal. Or excuse me, not normal, to whatever I had saved in function yes. So this offers you a on-the-fly way to really fuck up your shit and then come back to it, which I've used a lot for build-ups and stuff like that. But we were talking about Control All on the Digitone. Did you guys get a taste of that? Like, it's so cool. And of course, if I wanted to, I could go in and, you know, adjust individual things as well. Yeah, Root, if they had called it the Digi Heat, though, people would not know that it's analog, and it's very important that people know that it's analog, you know? So, Jiro, I actually wish that... I really wish that there was some way to reset a single track to its parameters. Yeah, it's super, super cool and super quick. I wish there was a way to reset one track to its individual parameters, because as I'm going through and doing a lot of... When you're doing the Control All on the Digitone, it's really easy to get to a place where you're like, holy shit, what have I done to that particular track. And you've done so many things at that point that you may really like the sound of one, but not the rest of them. And unfortunately, there's no way to do that. It's all or nothing. So you learn to work with those limitations. How would you compare, contrast the workflow of the Elektron setup against, say, the Deluge or the OPZ? Okay, I'll be completely honest. The Deluge and I have not spent a lot of time together after the initial period of doing the videos for it. I still have, I think, 4 performances that I did with it in the first month that are banked in YouTube. It'll release over a period of time. But, and I feel a little bad about this, I have not really felt compelled to pick it up as much as I have some other things. It's an incredibly powerful device, and I think, and I sort of felt that way about the Digitone, actually, which is why I forced myself to put it on the table and really spend time with it. So I'll do the same with the Deluge again soon. The Deluge's workflow without a screen, and with its like really, really complex shortcuts system that it's developed, while not hard to get into, I just haven't really felt as inspired to fuck with lately. So let me just try to give you a better answer of workflow. This is more immediate in a way, but the Deluge is a ton more capable. I mean, you're talking about combining basically like a Digitakt, the Digitone, though the FM implementation of the Deluge is not that good. So let's say this, a VA, a virtual analog synth, Octatrack all together in a single box. I mean, it can do a lot. If I was to go on a trip right now, I would probably take the Deluge with me to make friends with it again. As for the OPZ, I had a really interesting experience. When I got these and started playing with them, the Elektron boxes, I thought that the way that Elektron did conditional triggers and parameter locking was the be-all and end-all of sequencing. I loved it, and I was like, holy crap, why doesn't everything have this? And then I got the OPZ. The OPZ's sequencer, while it doesn't have like the straight-up like percentages that this thing does, which I really like, and the fill condition, which is really cool, where you can hold down page and any trigger set to the fill condition will play. And you can actually set it to be the opposite. So you can, with your drum machine, you can set up all kinds of cool fills and stuff like that. I wish the OPZ had that. But the way the OPZ has MIDI sequencing, where it, MIDI step components, where it like actually jumps to steps and changes what's being played from a pitch perspective, or does little trills, or like the step components on the OPZ sequencer are fucking amazing and can do it can do things that the sequencer cannot. And I really, really wish that there was a little bit more of the OPZ sequencer in almost everything that I use now. It would be interesting to hook up the OPZ to something like this, or another synth that has multiple channels to it, and see how those step components work with something like this. So Deluge, more capable, a little bit more obfuscated. OPZ, more immediate. Obviously, you don't have a screen, so that's kind of an issue for some people. And the step components in the OPZ sequencer are a blast. They are what I think take that device and set it apart, make it just like really, really special. If you're sort of asking which one would I buy if I was looking at all the 3 of them, the answer is the OPZ, hands down. I'm a big fan of things that can make full tracks, and the OPZ can definitely do that, and can sequence other gear too. So if that's what you're into, I would take a look at the OPZ. I'm waiting for the chat to catch up with my face. You have any other questions? Should I play another pattern? Happy to talk about all this stuff a little bit more. I'm gonna have some water. 820 Hydrate Crew, Andrew Huang. Yeah, Braden, it's when I think about it, when I think about the Deluge, like you're saying, I don't really think about like, oh, I can do this with it, I can do this with it, because it excels at this. It excels at everything. So it's almost like sitting down at Ableton and being like, how am I going to be inspired by Ableton today? And I mean, I don't get inspired by Ableton. Ableton's a tool. I reach for it when I know I need to make a certain kind of music, or a certain complexity of music, or I need a certain control over my music. Playing with hardware, I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that control. I want to be surprised by it. I want to be a little bit more organic with stuff. The drop is when you finish your donuts route. I'm going to play another pattern while you guys think about if you want to ask any more questions. What else we got? Boop, 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 boop. How about this one? This one's pretty good, I think. Bye, Wilmoto. Yeah, Rasmus, there'll be a VOD. Go to bed, Rasmus. Get some sleep. Wait, you've been hugging the bed. Are you sick? How do you hug a bed without sleeping in it? The question about keys. Yeah, they're really clicky. They are, I don't know how to describe them. They're kind of like a mechanical keyboard key. Rasmus, you should get some sleep. I mean, you can hear them through the microphone, I'm assuming. They're very tactile. They feel responsive, especially for the drum computer over here. Like, they just feel like you're almost like hitting a drum. It's really, really nice. There's no velocity sensitivity on these keys, but there is velocity sensitivity, I think, if you hook up a MIDI keyboard to this, which would be cool. I'm going to burp. Excuse me. Did I miss a question? Did anybody have another question? I'm gonna vape a nicotine. Do you mechanical bro? I have a mechanical keyboard for my computer, and I was recording a like how to make a video remix thing recently, and it's so clicky in the background. I'm like, maybe I should get a quieter keyboard for when I'm doing stuff for Ableton and videos. I'm trying to think of anything else that I could talk about while I'm waiting for y'all to maybe have questions. I love that sound so much. The Digitone reverb sounds really good. And it goes to infinite. Look, I can just have that. It'll never stop now. It's pretty cool. Turn an ARP on this if I wanted to. Jiro asks, what does the MIDI cable between the two do? Well, the Digitakt, the drum computer, is receiving sync and start and stop from the Digitone. So when I hit start here, this starts. Let me turn off the chromatic mode so you can see that when I hit start here, this is going to start playing. So yeah, it's just sync. I could plug another MIDI cable out of this through sync B into here, and the LFO and tempo information, the LFO on this, which can control all kinds of parameters, would receive sync from the Digitone, which would be cool. I could do this setup in a few different ways. The Digitakt has also has the ability to input a signal. And it has a master compressor on it, which I'm using on almost every single track in various degrees to kind of give a nice squash. So I'd be curious to know what would it sound like if I took a Digitone and I ran it into the Digitakt and compressed it all together. But I'm not using Overbridge to record this. I didn't use Overbridge to record this for the album. I just did what you see here, these outs. So Digitakt into Digitone, into Analog Heat, and then these outs are going directly into my sound card. If I had used Overbridge and done USB out for all of these things, I theoretically could have gotten more stems to work with, but it wouldn't have really given me the immediacy and focus that I was looking for. Rasmus, it sounds like you need to take a little break. It sounds like you need to take a little break for your brain and other things. Sometimes we got to take breaks, you know, it's important. Really love the arpeggiator on the Digitone. So I'm going to play one more pattern and see if anyone has any questions. And then I think we'll probably call it. We've been at this for about an hour now. And yeah, I want y'all to be able to enjoy your Sunday. Some of you obviously need some sleep or rest or whatever you're going to do. I want to play some Sekiro. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, because I haven't beaten my head against that game. And I think I might be able to beat a boss today. Let's see. What are we going to do? I did that one. I did not do this one. Let's see. There we go. All right. Get out of master mode. Turn everything off. Oh, you know what? Let's do this one. I like this pattern a lot. One of the things I will say, and I don't know if anyone else that has run into this with the Digitone, because you hold down the MIDI button to access Control All mode, which is obviously a big part of the performance for me. I sometimes accidentally just hit it and it goes into MIDI mode and then I can't do anything. And I'm usually panicking to turn it off or get back to Control All mode. Just one of those dumb things that happens. All right, here we go. All right. Let's see. Function and a track will unmute a track. Hope your kids are well, Mr. Bo Beats. Let's wrap this up with another pattern, okay? I don't know which ones I want to play here. I think it's these two. Oh, that's weird. Not hearing anything out of the Digitone. I'm going to reload my project. Listening with kids. Sometimes they're well behaved. Bo Beats has taught his kids the value of the. Oh, okay. I thought Bo was just inundating his kids with the synths. Okay, something fucky is going on. Whatever, we're just gonna deal with it. That's a fun pattern. Any plans for the next stream? Yes, I believe the next stream is going to be about the Arturia Micro Freak. I'm getting it on Monday, and I'm not going to jump on doing a video about it. I actually want to spend some time with the Base Station 2's new firmware and play with Aphex mode. I want to try to make a track with Aphex mode where every key can be a patch. So basically, every key you can make a new patch on, and I think that's going to be a really exciting way to experiment with just getting some really wild shit. Maybe I'll use the Digitakt to sequence it. I don't know. And then, yeah, so once I get a chance to learn the Micro Freak, I will probably do a stream with that, maybe even before I make a video, because I think people are going to have questions about it they want to talk about. I know Bo Beats did a video about it already. Loopop did a video too. Both of those are worth going to watch if you want to learn more about it. It seems like a really interesting device. Bo asks, answered this before, Jeremy. Yeah, we talked about the analog heat at the end of the chain, right at the beginning of the stream. Losing my train of thought. I just spit all over it. I'm using it in clean boost mode. I really like it. Just a quick rundown of the settings that I'm using for this particular chain right here. Clean boost mode on the Analog Heat drive, you can see, is set to about, I don't know, what time is that? 10-ish? 9, 10, 10, 11. My EQ is set to roll off. Oh, actually, I'm enhancing the low, which is sort of a little low bump, a little tiny bit, and the highs are also getting a little enhanced as well. And then I'm using my filter, as you can see, maybe right here. Probably not, because this is not the best angle for all this. I'm using the high-pass filter on this to filter out everything below about 25 hertz. I'm doing just a little cleanup in the mids. And this is how I master stuff too. When I use the Louder Than Liftoff Silver Bullet, this is very similar to the settings I'm using on that for saturation and an EQ. Just clean and pump a little bit. It's really cool. One of the things I will say about this is I know with the envelope follower, which it has, you can set the envelope. I don't know if you'll be able to see this right here. Let me turn the drums back on. So can you see the little graph right now? Or the little waveform readout? I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. All right, cool. So if I go into this, oops. The envelope follower is now being set to negatively affect the parameter, the drive parameter. And you can hear how that almost sounds like a compressor. And it is, because basically what's happening is, let me stop this again. The envelope follower is taking the information, the amplitude information it's getting from the input, and it's measuring that, and it's now turning down or up the parameter. It's affecting the parameter that I set it to, and in this case, drive. So it's almost a compression effect, which is really, really cool. Keep on hitting the wrong knob. So the Analog Heat's really interesting in that respect. I don't have a compressor on the. Oh, that's really nice, actually. It kind of makes the drums a little bit more pillowy, which is cool. What does that sound like with this shit? I'm gonna turn the Digitone on real quick. That's actually a real interesting effect. Rasmus says, cool, I need to buy them all. Yeah, you do. Just buy everything. Stick them all together. Make them kiss. So a long form answer to your question, Bo, that was kind of it. I really like this at the end of the chain for just a little bit of enhancement. When I do start using it for other things, I'm going to be using the actual distortion modes a bit more. And I think one of the things that you could do with it that would be kind of interesting is plug like it is the input and output of it's like send the Digitakt out to it and then back, And then you could resample things that you're doing in the Digitakt through distortion, and then have distorted stuff in here. You could also send the Digitone into this alone, send the output of this into the Digitakt, and sample through the Digitakt individual hits or sequences that have been run through the analog heat into the Digitakt and have those to play, which I think would be really, really cool. Lots of different options when you start plugging things into each other. Now I want to name them all. I'll have to think of that. I'll let you guys know what I name these. But I think we're going to wrap it up. I think this has been a really fun stream for me. I hope it's been fun for you. I appreciate the questions, and I appreciate you tuning in. It's always fun to hang out with y'all. And do this thing. I'll try to do more live streams. Like I said, the next one will be with the Micro Freak. And yeah, I'm gonna do the sign off thing. Thank you all for being patrons. Thank you all for being part of this experience. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna go hit stop streaming on the thing and go do some Sekiro. I'll talk to y'all soon. Love you. Bye.